Hello, I'm Toby Fox from 1.5 Million New Homes, the local government challenge, sponsored by Redloft, by Mount Anvil and by Pitman Tozer Architects. Every month I'm visiting a different council to ask them what works and what needs to change to get more homes built. And this month I'm in Westminster. So I'm here with Setareh Neshati, who is the Regeneration and Development Director at Westminster City Council. Thank you very much indeed, Setareh, for sparing the time to be with us. Tell us a bit about your role. What does it involve?
Sure. Thanks, Toby. My pleasure. Obviously, my key responsibility within that regeneration development is to, and you can see my title has got a second part which says delivery and operation. And what does exactly mean? I'm responsible to deliver Westminster Affordable Housing Programme. And within that, it's not just affordable housing. It is many things that we deliver. It's private, it's community infrastructure, and many other things that we need to deliver. So my full responsibility was to deliver the 4,000 new homes we needed. We have delivered halfway through, exceeding half, and we got another 50% to go. So
you're feeling good about it?
Absolutely, yeah. Of course. I think so far we are on track in terms of our targets, but that's my key responsibility.
Okay. And what's the best part of that role for you?
Right. I think the best part of that role is being a leader. Okay. Looking after people who are responsible to do the work. How good is that? Of course, on paper, it is fantastic. But the reality of our operation is at any point of time, one should be able to switch between being a leader and being a manager. And of course, we know the difference between being a leader and a manager is the leader is responsible just to look after the people who do the work. Okay. And being a manager means that just responsible to do the work. Of course, going through the whole journey that we have had at Westminster and the fact that we needed to reflect on our operational model means that over 2 years ago, literally from now, we had to revisit our operational model and then go through a restructure.
Why was that?
Of course, we knew about 8 years ago, the whole journey of this program, the Westminster Affordable Housing Programme, started over 8 years ago. Of course, this was at the back of many local authorities stop building anything for literally a few decades. So it was early days, and my predecessors started that journey by pulling together a group of people to work together. It was a development arm company for Westminster Council called City West Home. Then back in 2018, a decision was made to bring that company in-house and merge with a small group of Westminster offices and set up this new regeneration and development team. The first few years, everybody was busy just doing what we're supposed to be doing. Then the COVID happened. And it was only after the COVID that we looked at what is ahead of us. We have got a program of another 10 years of 2 major regeneration programs at Church Street and Ebury. We also got whatever we call development, but they are still at reasonable size within the middle of these 2 regeneration. So we knew that in order for us to maintain the pace and meet the KPIs that we talked about earlier today, we have to have the right operational model. And applying the lessons learned from private sector, which was most of my background prior to joining Westminster, and then also reflecting on the KPIs for a local authority operation, we come up with a model that I think 2 years in is delivering at a pace that is required and meeting and ticking all those boxes and KPIs. So getting it right required right people round the table. And for us, we need to make sure we understand the language that is spoken in this industry. Being able to respond as a client, as a developer, as a local authority. So it is quite important, and I think the operational model we have set out in-house when it comes to development managers, regeneration managers, sales and marketing managers, program management office that we have, the stakeholder engagement team that we have. We have got all this development finance team, commercial management. Within our team, which is this umbrella of regeneration and development, we have got all these sub-teams which then creates our operational model.
How big is that team? How many people?
It is about 45 of us. At
45 people, and that's to deliver, what, 9,000 homes over 15 years?
4,000 homes.
Sorry,
4,000 homes, between 10 to 15. It depends when we look at in terms of the start of this program. So 45 professionals in every discipline that I made a reference to, from commercial management, development, finance, even sales and marketing. We need to make sure that what we are building in terms of those private units can be shifted to subsidize the delivery of the affordable homes and community infrastructure.
And just getting into the sort of your sort of personal perspective on all of this, your journey into this is quite unusual, isn't it? You've come in from the private sector. Tell us a bit about that journey and how it influences the way that you see development.
Absolutely. I think it is a privilege because Westminster as a local authority, Westminster program, current Westminster program, it is fascinating and therefore, and happening all in Zone 1 within the city of Westminster. So you don't get it any better. Every time there's a special program on TV, you can always see a crane or a corner of one of our sites, whatever live coverage happening in central London, which is amazing. What I would say is applying all the lessons learned, because as I mentioned, development as an industry has got its own KPIs, it's got its own standard. Making sure that while we are focusing and reflecting on KPIs from a local authority perspective, bringing all those commercial acumen, all those qualities that one needs to meet when it comes to working and operating within a developer operation, and how we can adjust and apply, I think that's quite important.
Where did you learn those things? Where were you working?
Of course, before joining Westminster, I was working for private developers most of the time. I was also very lucky working. I worked quite. When I first started actually my career, I had 2 bosses, which I learned a lot from them. I think I genuinely believe it was quite lucky.
Do you want to name them?
Of course, Erica Mortimer, my first boss, who founded, who was one of the founders of a company called CGMS. It was the initials of the original founders. When I first arrived, I literally ended up, and she was the managing director of the company over 23 years ago. When I first started, I ended up working directly to Erica, and everybody was terrified of Erica and her style. But I learned a lot by just working with her, and that built the first 7-8 years of my career, just working. And I think it was not just the technical knowledge; it was the whole leadership, the whole drive and passion and enjoyment, which I learned how to enjoy what you do. And that gives me the passion and energy to then every day when I turn up, when I work with a team, there are difficult days for sure, you can imagine. This is not easy. And when we are going through difficult days, I always remind myself of why I'm doing what I am doing.
So what is the hardest aspect of what you have to do? What do you find most difficult?
I think everything is a priority, isn't it? Right. Striking a balance between priorities is one of the biggest challenges, because you see that we have got the temporary accommodation challenge and the pressure. We got residents who are living and patiently waiting on existing affordable units that in need of major interventions when it comes to sustainability, energies and everything else, and residential quality. So which one is priority? Then you have got the free meals at a school, then you have got the safety on the street, and you have got a central funding. So for me, every time I'm negotiating on behalf of Westminster City Council when it comes to consultant fees, contractors, delays, claims, I have got a figure. I think, in my view, according to the current prices, every 400,000 to 500,000 equals an affordable homes.
Okay.
So every time I need to agree to an extension, to additional fees, to an uplift to a contract value, I'm just feeling, am I giving up delivery of one affordable homes here?
Yeah.
If I am committing to this, and how we prevent that by following good practices, by making sure we set to start our journeys right, so we don't end up these challenges. We know that currently one of the biggest challenges in the industry is that this going through this process of litigations, all these claims that needs very rightly needs to happen, but how we prevent that, because it's not just what you end up paying as a result of that litigation case, the cost of even going through that process itself, the legal cost, the officer's time and diversion of our focus from our main responsibility to then go and defend the case. Touch wood, and luckily we don't have any of that at Westminster related to our program currently. For me, is starting on the right note, making sure we have got clarity, our position is very clear, our brief is clear, because as someone who have operated the consultancy service before, I know there's nothing worse working with a client that operates like a headless chicken.
Yeah.
That's the reality. So I always put myself in my consultant and our partners and our contractors' shoes, saying, how does it feel being at the receiving end of working with Westminster? I have got a regular catch-up quarterly with all of senior management of all partners, when my first question has always been, how is Team Westminster performing? I actively seek feedback, because unless I know how our team is doing, how I am doing, how we as a team is doing, how we can respond and how we can get better. And I have created this dynamic of transparency, very open and honest conversation. And as a result of those feedbacks, we have managed to respond positively, and touch wood so far, I think with our operations, yes, we have got conversations, sometimes even difficult conversation, but it's always resolved based on the principle that is always agreed and we can always refer back to.
Would you say you're a tough negotiator?
I wouldn't use the tough negotiator, the terminology tough. I'm actually quite fair when it comes to, because there is limit on how much freebies one asks for.
Okay.
As a local authority, we need to be seen we are supporting the businesses rather than putting them at risk of, how challenges is the current environment in terms of small businesses, SMEs, these are small consultancies, or contractors going bust, right? I always believe that if I offer that clarity from the outset, I actually support. Part of our role, or part of my role, is actually help the businesses to thrive rather than me squeezing them to the last penny, so it means that they go down. So I always try to follow good practices and being fair, because we are promoting fair Westminster.
Yeah. Okay, so what's your advice to a future housing leader, to someone who's aspiring to be the Development and Regeneration Director at a local authority?
Sure. I would say what I have experienced at Westminster City Council over the past 7 years is all about your people, the team. You need to have the right people sitting around the table representing the council to make sure that the council's interests are protected and promoted. Having the right skill set is fundamental, and the right operational model, because part of the journey is decision making. And if we as officers cannot provide or furnish the decision makers, the politicians, to make the right decisions, then it will take time. That's why it is quite famous saying, it takes so long for local authorities to make decisions. But I would say I'm quite happy for those who work with us to also provide their version of a story. Is it long now working with Westminster? Because we have established such a rigid governance process. Of course, is a cross-department working together. Our colleagues at finance team, procurement, legal, policy, you name it. It is genuine collaboration across the council which delivers the result or the pace that is quite surprising for some of our partners. I'm sure you will talk to them. Some of our partners, when they compare our operation, they always make a reference to the fact that they are quite pleased and perhaps surprised in some cases that our pace or the governance and the way we make decisions is quite swift and according to the standards that they are expecting, which is quite encouraging for me.
Setareh, thank you very much again for your contribution to 1.5 million new homes.
My pleasure, thank you.
And that just about wraps it up for another episode of 1.5 million new homes, the Local Government Challenge, sponsored by Redloft and by Mount Anvil and Pitman Tozer Architects. We're going to be back in a few days with more from Westminster. But until then, if you could hit like and subscribe, we'd be really grateful, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for watching.